Today we're going to try and break down the big, powerful arguments from Yuval Noah Harari's book, 21 Lessons for the 21st Century. It's a really challenging look at the world we're living in right now, and, well, where we might be headed.
So Harari starts with this one single, really urgent question. His whole argument is that the big stories we've always told ourselves to make sense of everything, stories about gods and nations and our values, they're starting to fall apart. And it's happening at the exact moment we're facing our biggest challenges ever, which is leaving us feeling pretty lost.
For a long time, for most of our recent history, there was one story that just dominated everything, right? And that was the liberal story. It was a simple and really powerful idea. If we just focus on individual freedoms, on human rights, on free market capitalism, we'll end up with peace and prosperity for everyone on the planet.
And you know what? For a long time, it worked. It worked better than pretty much anything else in history. Just think about these stats for a second. For the first time ever, more people were dying from eating too much than from starvation. More people were dying in accidents than from violence. And old age, not some terrible plague, became the most common cause of death.
But that story is broken. That whole era, it feels like it's coming to an end. And the problem is, just as our faith in that liberal story is collapsing, the old answers just don't seem to work anymore. You see, the whole idea behind the liberal story was growth, right? Let's just make the economic pie bigger and everyone gets a slice. But what happens when the very thing that made the pie, that constant growth, is now causing our biggest crisis, ecological collapse? And what happens if new technology makes most human jobs and that pie kind of irrelevant anyway? And that leads us right into the first huge disruption Harari talks about. It's this fusion of information technology and biotechnology. And what that really means is we're creating algorithms that can understand our own feelings and choices better than we can ourselves. Basically, technology is learning how to hack human beings. And this is where it gets really scary for things like democracy. Our entire system is built on this idea that the voter knows best, right? That your feelings, your gut instinct, that's your free will. But what happens when some algorithm tracking your heartbeat, your eye movements, your brain activity, what happens when it knows you better than you know yourself? It can see your choices aren't rational. It knows they're emotional, they're predictable, and worse, they can be manipulated. Harari puts it perfectly here. Think about it. If an algorithm can predict how you're going to vote before you even step into the booth, or sell you something based on a desire you didn't even know you had, is that really a free choice? Is that still a democracy?
And this isn't just theory anymore. This technology is forcing us to turn these old philosophical questions into actual lines of code. The classic trolley problem from your philosophy class? It's not a thought experiment now. It's a real-life problem for a programmer at Tesla or Google.
Okay, so picture this. A self-driving car is in a situation where a crash is going to happen. No way out. What does it do? Does it swerve to save a couple of pedestrians but sacrifice you, its owner? Or does it protect you and hit the pedestrians? And the really tricky part is, who gets to decide that? The engineer writing the code? The government? Or are we going to have to choose between buying, say, an egoist model that saves us no matter what versus an altruist model? We literally have to program morality into machines. And it's not just these life or death ethical problems. Think about jobs. As AI gets better than us at everything, driving cars, diagnosing diseases, managing money, what happens to the billions of people who used to do those jobs? Harari has this really stark warning. We risk creating a massive new useless class. And that's not just an economic problem. It's a recipe for political disaster. So you've got all this scary, complicated global stuff happening. And what do people do? We do something very, very human. We retreat. We pull back from the confusing global picture and run towards something that feels safe and familiar. The nation. And you see this popping up all over the place, right? In the US, it's Make America Great Again. In Britain, it was the dream of Brexit. Russia is looking back to its old empire, China to its ancient past. It's this global trend of retreating into these almost fantasy versions of a simpler time. But here's the huge, glaring problem with that. Things like climate change or nuclear war or technological disruption, they don't care about our borders. They don't respect walls. No single country, no matter how great it thinks it is, can solve these problems on its own. Walling ourselves off is literally the worst thing we could be doing right now.
Okay, so how does all this connect? A broken liberal story, AI hacking our brains, nationalism on the rise. What's the common thread? Well, this is where Harari makes his most radical point.
He says they are all, at their very core, just stories. Fictions that we've made up to help us work together.
His whole idea is that the one thing that makes humans so powerful, our ability to cooperate in huge numbers, it all comes down to our ability to believe in the same shared myths, the same fictions.
Now, this quote is definitely meant to be a bit shocking, but the idea behind it is really deep. He's not just trying to knock religion. He's putting it in the same category as things like nations, laws, and money, these powerful, made-up ideas that let millions, even billions of strangers all work together.
I mean, really think about it. You can't touch America. It doesn't physically exist in nature. A dollar bill is just a piece of green paper with some ink on it. The only reason these things have any power at all is because billions of us agree to believe in the story behind them. They only exist in our collective imagination.
And this is the crazy part. We have this amazing ability to kind of know it's a fiction but act like it's real at the same time. You know that dollar bill is just paper, but when you're at the store, you treat it like it has real value because you trust that everyone else will too. We hold both ideas in our head at once.
Okay, so if all the big stories that hold our world together are just fictions, and those fictions are breaking down, where does that leave us? What are we supposed to do? Harari's answer is pretty surprising. He says the goal isn't to go find a new, better story to believe in. The single most important skill we can have right now is just learning to see the difference between what's a story and what's actually real.
Which, of course, leads to the ultimate question. If all of it, nations, gods, money, is a story, then what is real? What can we actually hold on to? Harari says we should start with the most basic, undeniable thing we can directly observe. Suffering. A nation can't feel pain. A corporation can't feel sadness, but a person can. When a soldier dies for the glory of the nation doesn't feel a thing. But that soldier's pain, the grief of their family, that is 100% real. That, Harari argues, is our anchor. That's our ground truth.
So how do you get better at seeing that reality? How do you cut through all the stories? Harari suggests a really old-school tool, meditation. But he doesn't talk about it in some mystical way. For him, it's a practical technique. It's a way to just sit and watch your own mind, to see how it cooks up stories and emotions, and to learn firsthand the difference between those stories and what's actually happening to you.
And that really is the final, powerful lesson here. In a world that feels like it's drowning in noise and disinformation and crumbling narratives, the answer isn't a new story. The challenge of the 21st century, according to Harari, is to have the courage to stop looking for a comforting fiction and to start observing reality just as it is.
And with that, we're wrapping up. On behalf of everyone here at Growth Tribe, we'll see you soon.